Okay, it is currently 9:06 a.m. I am in Romulus, Michigan. My name is Ryan Ellis, and I'm 20 years old. This is my story. So, I began writing poetry when I was in eighth grade, about 12 years old, 13 years old. I thought about the world and how magnificent and beautiful it was from an even younger age. I believe when I was 4 years old is when I first started to understand the impact I could leave on the world, although it calls itself eternity. What I imagined when I learned it in church was my legacy. So, for a long time, I had this magical dream of all the fantastical things that I could do, and it was quite fun to imagine. So, in eighth grade, my mind, which was still developing, became very, very confused after realizing my sexuality and understanding, that I am a person. And so, a single scripture began me into a universe that had precepts and kings and rulers and nations. Uh, Hebrews chapter 22, verse 29. For our God is a consuming fire. And at that time, I was an agnostic at best. Because, hey, I'm very gay, very confused all the time, or I was, rather. And, so I didn't understand per se how a God could consume hatred and still remain godliness. How we can become enraptured in the man, or rather the self, and still have a sense of peace. And so I I lost my way, lost my mind. So when I was 9 years old, my brother had an aneurysm. The same year as the first time I smoked weed with my sister. And I watched a man become monster, become lost, become afraid of self. I watched person fall from the highest tower into the depths of despair. And I hated it. you know, I didn't hate him. I didn't hate God. I hated the world. I was so scared. After my brother's aneurysm, my mom eventually would stop working. And my sister would find remedy and solace in Xanax and other drugs. So many. And so, after that, I didn't know. I saw their mourning and their suffering, and I just mimicked it because I didn't understand anything else. I thought that the pain that they inherited, or rather experienced, was my inheritance, was my birthright, that suffering was who I was as a person. And that's what kills me inside. You know, I had no idea what I was doing. Ruminating over things I had no control, putting myself foot first into a world where you don't make the decisions. You experience and you move forward, and your environment becomes your mindset. And you don't make the decisions until you get older, until you have the possibilities to change everybody's mind and everybody's world, and everything that you're thinking, all those negative thoughts can go away. And so in eighth grade, I wrote my first poem quoting "For our God is a consuming fire," and it was like probably the most horrible assemblage of words that are possible to mankind, i.e., and nothing. And it started me into this descent, this fall, this huge fall from God, and not necessarily that I'm saying it as if, Christianity or religion is so important. I'm saying it made me fall from the top of my understanding into the pits of confusion. Because after eighth grade, when I started 7 years ago, writing poetry, in ninth grade, my dad died. When he died, I didn't know what it could. I didn't know what to ask for help. I didn't know what to say. And nobody listened. Nobody knew what to say. I didn't get it. I didn't get it. I couldn't hear them even when I tried to listen. I didn't know that what they were saying was for me. I thought it was for them. I was so cynical and I ruminated so much. And instead of focusing on schoolwork or a way out of my suffering or a way into happiness or ways to mitigate this infinite madness that began to dwell inside of my being, my very being, I got worse and worse and worse and then dumb, crazy, stupid shit that nobody should do. Like, nothing should have propelled that. And it's like, only reason is because I just didn't understand that I was a person and people experience things outside of their control. And you don't get to make a decision that God makes or the universe decides or that is completely inconsequentially out of your control. You know? And so I blamed everybody for him dying, and I blamed everybody for my sadness, and I blamed everybody for their own ruminating, and their own pain, and their own causes, and things that had nothing to do with anything. And it killed me inside to think like that, you know? Like, what's wrong with my mind, and what's wrong with who I am, and why do I think that it's okay, you know? So through high school, without reading a single book on the curriculum, but always staying inside of a book, I created a complete world of fantasy that had no precipice in reality. It did not exist, you know? And I made sure that it did. When I saw somebody sad at school, let me talk to them, let me preach and evangelize, this nihilistic reality, this you do not need to care. Why do you care so much? Why are you so into the meaning? Why is everything everyone's saying to you so grandiose, so important, and so purposeful? And it's like, okay, don't think like that. But at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, you think like that. And I moved to Florida after graduating, and I wasn't in college, obviously, because I was too wrapped up in the wrong worlds to know about this one that is so beautifully and magically around us at all times, you know. And when I was right after high school, 17, we moved to Florida, where my grandmother lives, and she moved there after my grandfather's death in 2006. And it was like almost a bit of understanding of where my mind came from, as well as spending the time with my mom, where my heart came from, and all this love that is so much different than anything I can imagine explaining into usable words, which is so weird and so extravagant and abstract, really. But so I got this piece of me, and it was like a big piece of the puzzle that was missing, and it fell into place. And then I got this other piece of me, and it was another piece of the puzzle, and it fell into place. And so the only thing I had to overcome now was my soul, my motivations, the most fundamental part of my human psyche. And in order to overcome the soul, I had to remedy a lot of the evil I caused internally. My friends that I took out all my anger on in high school, the teachers that I blamed for me not being able to read right, the people I thought just didn't see anything in me, but other the way I was projecting and I didn't see anything into myself. And so I changed my title of agnostic, which was my self designation from the age of honestly sixth grade when I discovered self, or first encountered the idea that I exist. And I hid it inside of books that weren't on the curriculum, books at this when I was at the JFK Romulus Library, like volunteering on my summers, books that really weren't real, and then a whole plethora of poems from people my age and all the way up to the ceiling, the highest glass ceiling, and I I I remedied the self, the agnostic self, the me that was questioning and indecisive, and I made a decision that I'd be Christian. Crazy because I'm gay. Well, that was my problem. I blamed God and humanity and even the universe for something that's okay. Something that's so normal. Something that it's not bad to suffer with, you know, because there are way worse sufferings than just being homosexual, to being fascinated by men's genitalia and the beings and characters of a man. There are way worse sufferings, like the illnesses that consumed my family, like the death that result in causality of a horrible, and I mean this with the most sincere love for my father, lifestyle. And there's hating yourself, which is far worse than gay, like far worse than being gay. I promise, it's so much worse. And so, I began to slowly accept God into my life, which began the cinders or sparks for love for my soul, the love of my soul. And, well, it made no damn sense to me, because I am a creature that has no idea where I come from. To quote Jordan Peterson, 3.5 billion years of evolution got me here. And being gay, even though there's many ways I can remedy that, I felt as if I would end 3.5 billion years of human evolution, 7 million years of rather human evolution, 60,000 years of Homo sapien evolution, 3,000 years of Christian evolution. I felt like I was just the end all to my family's legacy because I knew the state of being my brother and sister had inhabited after consuming too many drugs. In fact, my brother actually stabbed my sister, which led me into a deeper chaos these past couple of years. And prior to that, it was my stepdad punching my mom or hitting her in the face, or that broke me. That like forced me, wanted me to come out, wanted me to express everything that I kept inside, because I remember the day vividly. I saw it outside my neighbor's window, and I ran outside to go attack him, and I froze because I didn't want to hurt him. I was done hurting people. I didn't want to hit him. And it confused me because he just hit my mom. Why didn't I want to hit him? Why didn't I want to hurt him? Why didn't I want him to feel the pain that I felt, and even feel the pain that she felt? What was wrong with me? And I tried to talk to church or my prophet, because that's the belief system we have in our sect or denomination of Christianity. And, you know, he prophesied, he gave me hope, a little bit of fruit, or actually he's an apostle now. And he's a really wise, kind, and intellectual figure in my life right now, even though I've only spoken to him a few times, and that was almost over a year ago now. Why didn't I want to hurt someone who just hurt the woman I love the most, my mom, and the last parent I feel like I have? And that isn't no means to disregard my stepdad, but that question needed to be answered. So I stopped smoking weed, which I had been doing. Let's see, I was 18. I had been doing for 9 years straight with no end. I drank at 12 years old with my dad, which probably also led to my confusion about his death and his actions, and trying to remedy all of the chaos inside of my mind and put it into a bubble, put it into a single area where it will be understood. And maybe if you would remedy that chaos, if you just put one eye through it, you could see through it. And maybe you'd understand the chaos better than I could. And with that chaos creates order, and maybe that order would be, and I'd just become on and always creating this whole and this accumulation and this like just bringing everything back to please understand me, please understand me, please understand me. I could extravagate. I could create all of these amazing, like just vivid conversations and statements, but the only thing that I was saying was please understand me, please understand me. I'd talk to teachers about everything, creative writing. I'd talk to teachers about biology and sciences, and I'd be saying please understand me, please understand me, please understand me. Trump's presidency and everything that eloped into it with the Hillary conflict and the Trump conflict and everything, and the whole election in 2016, which was my senior year. Please understand me, please understand me, please understand me. I could debate anything. And it would always come back to me asking that single question that I wasn't even realized I never asked myself. Please understand me. And that action of not hitting my stepdad, which is so weird, after he just hit my mom, and just crying a lot with her, it kind of made me understand me. Or at least the foundation. And going upward, after my brother stabbed my sister, our house became pretty desolate. There were a lot of unsaid words and a shit ton of energy pent up. And so my stepdad got punched, and my mom got into their conflict rather in the summer. And my siblings got into their conflict in October, or rather, right after my birthday, my 19th birthday. And it would be my brother leaving in handcuffs with my sister's blood all over the house, and I'd find out he was on cocaine, and he was not necessarily in his right mind, but considering he had an aneurysm 10 years prior, to assume that he had full control of his right mind, or rather not 10, but 9 years prior, to assume he had full control over his right mind was almost ludicrous. And that's a neurological disorder, not a psychological meaning. You cannot change a neurological disorder, but you can, you know, mitigate or ease a psychological disorder. And so and I'd been performing poetry for a long time. Not well, the entire time I was in Florida, rather. So my my it was after my sister would leave after my brother left in handcuffs. In fits of rage, me and her got into tons of arguments and tons of fights, which you'd be like, well, why would you fight with someone who's stabbed? Well, the mind answer, or the answer that contains rationality, is that she was lashing out and angry and crazy to an extent, not of her own will, but because of the pain and pure trauma of being stabbed by your brother, rather intentionally or not. And the hard answer is because I'd been fighting her all my life. And that was no different. And we didn't know how to calm her down when she got drunk and angry. We didn't know what to say to her to make her calm down, to make her understand that we love her and that love will never fade regardless anything you've ever done, bad or good. But you have to change that thing that consumes you and puts you into this deficit and makes you feel so drunk and so lost and so hurt and so in pain, and emboldens you to do the things that cause you the most pain. And so, when she left, it was just me, my stepdad, and my mother in that house. And I had a lot of time for self discovery and self growth. I stumbled across Homo Universalis, meaning the Renaissance man. And at this point, obviously, I have done well, I don't know if it's obvious, but I had done no college, because when I tried to get into college, I was too confused. And then the second time I tried to get into college, when I turned 18, I apparently didn't have an actual legal Florida residency in the time of the beginning, so I was doing out-of-state tuition, which meant that I couldn't afford it. And yeah, so and so once I started on the path to self-discovery, I just fell further and further down this hole, this chasm, this unbelievable pit. And I didn't know what to do with it. Like, how do you control that? How do you change that? How do you make that okay? How do you put that into words? How do you define that? And then on top of that, how do you express that? Not just putting it into words, but putting it into feeling. Feeling is not words. Feeling is not just spoken. Feeling is articulated, imagined, and then and this is obviously Jordan Peterson, produced into fabric, or into physicality. It's and nevertheless, I began a relationship with someone who I grew to love immensely, and the only thing he taught me, he taught me to see myself in a different light. I had no idea he liked me. We'd known each other since right after my 18th birthday in 2017. I went to a poetry night called Say the Word. This is my bucket list. Say the words right here. My bucket list, is right here. And it has a couple of pages on it. It's things I want to do. Um, More than a couple. And in 2017, right after my 18th birthday, my aunt took us to this poetry night, say the word, and I performed this poem called Obituaries. His thoughts submitted, ceremonies held, but there was no worship. He gnawed on sacrifice till he chipped his tooth, and then he swallowed it. And there's more, but afterwards I met a boy. Well, he wasn't a boy. He was a man. I had just transitioned from boyhood, so all men had that peculiar light of boyness to them, that quality, that essence of, are you a boy? I'm a boy. Wow. We have the same origin, but there is a very different level of thought in a man and a boy. Um, and perhaps that's why I perceived him as a boy. And to this day, it can be considered that he is still a boy because his maturity has not eclipsed that. And it's not. I'm not judging him. I'm not creating any worlds or false narratives. I'm just. And so I had no idea he liked me. After meeting him and us becoming friends after that poetry night, and our friendship growing and even falling a couple times, but we always would just jump right back to height. And so in November of 2017, after what happened to my brother and sister, and I'd started smoking cigarettes again, and I'd started smoking weed again, which I stopped prior when my stepdad and mom got into their altercation because I just wanted to find myself. And then after not getting into college, I was so pissed off at myself. I was pissed off at my circumstance. I'm like, there's never going to be a way for me to reach higher education, for me to elevate myself, all of this comes from books. And I was horrible in high school. I was lazy. I was so consumed within my own narrative of the universe that I had no idea that there has been an underlying narrative forever. Like all of mankind forever. Like, not saying it like that, but we have, as a species, we grow collectively through our ideas and exchanges and communicating ideas by like abstract and real concrete concepts. It's like literally how we morph, how we become who we are. And nevertheless, I got so wrapped up in my own narrative that I never got anywhere. And I believe that the reason that I still wasn't anywhere was because of that enrapture inside of my head. And that I was like, why haven't I freed myself yet? Well, what the heck? What do I have to do to free myself? And that just causes more reasons to get consumed by things that are beyond me and things that I have full control over, like what I do to myself, what I intake, the amount of alcohol I consume, the amount of weed I smoke or cigarettes I smoke, or other drugs that I'd later do and I had done already. And he said he was gonna pick me up. We went to his house, and out of nowhere, I swear to you, you could have told me at this point that our sky was a blanket, and the clouds were pillows, and the moon was cheese, and I would not have believed you, not at all. And then when I got to his house, he came out with flowers, because that's the type of person he was. Just unpredictable. Completely beyond me in every sense of the words. And that's who he was. And so he had asked me out, and honestly, I did not want a relationship, and definitely not with him. Mostly because I had no friends. Through the entirety of this journey, I collected a lot of people's um, ideas, but I don't think I retained many people's. And the journey started all of high school, prior to high school, literally. I'd say it was when I was 4 years old and discovered eternity and legacy, but yeah, right around then when I discovered my sexuality, I collected a lot of ideas and a lot of people's hearts, not necessarily like that, but into the ways that I felt a lot of what they felt empathetically, and I remedied that with my own understanding. And I took a chance and I said, sure. I sure it was probably the most mundane of ways to say that. Like, like why did I just like I don't know. I could have said yes. Oh my god, my heart, I'm capable of monologuing beyond belief. Like, oh Jesus Christ, under love's heavy burden do I sink, or so I thought. Nevertheless, and we began to challenge each other intellectually. And we'd always had these deep debates about life and democracy and ideas that are so existential and so unworldly and so just beyond the surface of who we were, but never in depth with what we believe. If that makes sense. And so, he gave me the most um, heartening of realizations about myself and all of my insecurities when, over the course of our relationship, it was almost beautiful. Like the most beautiful one I've ever had in my life. And at the end, you know, we championed a narrative outside of ourselves, outside of our own narratives, rather, and realized that our relationship was three different things almost simultaneously. It was overcompensating because I was the first man to bring him out of the closet. He's a couple years older than me, and I'm 19 at this time, and I was and with the overcompensating or overcoming rather, I should say, overcompensating sounds rude, and it's not at all the point I'm making. I was the overcoming of his family's ideas of him and an escape in a way he could tell people, "Hey, I'm gay." And he was escape. He was me drawing far, far from my realities of the pain that my family has inflicted upon themselves that I absorbed and the pain that they directly inflicted into my mind, into my under my heart, and like finally what we really were, the real narrative, um, overcoming escape and lonely, and like that loneliness began to define us. In a ton of ways, it defined who we were. And I definitely hated it. Nevertheless, at the end of our relationship, which honestly wouldn't have been the end because I didn't even foresee it, not saying it like that. I'm definitely not some type of psychic. And the end, he just said he never saw himself with a black man. It was my first time in the South, though, after living in the North, Michigan. Hey man, Michigan all that time. And so I didn't know that was a thing. Like I just didn't know. I didn't know that was a thing. And so after that, um, he also said he wasn't attracted to me, which I've always felt there was something wrong with me, and that nobody would be attracted to me. So that was reaffirming. Honestly, it definitely cleared a little confusion. And perhaps I created that ideology, but also that it could have also been apparent that I thought that way on my face all the time, and that made me even more unattractive. But that was my biggest insecurity too, that nobody would like me for me. And he also attacked my beliefs. Now that was the vicious attack that turned me into a psychosis that I can only say remedied literally a month or two ago. And this clarity has created such a vision for understanding and such a vision for life, such a beautiful like escape from all of my inner turmoils. And nevertheless, when he said that, it was the day after I finally cussed my stepdad out in anger and protest because me and my ex were supposed to leave. Um, and well, I was supposed to move out and move into my ex's friend's house, and try to go to school and try and become better and a whole bunch of things that never happened. And I had just cussed my stepdad out about punching my mom and then acting like it was okay. And I don't blame my stepdad, and I don't blame my mom, and I don't blame my brother, and I don't blame my sister. You, there is a chaos in almost everybody that if we don't get to express the confusions or sadness or our grievances or even take out all of the dark or the horrors of the night and consider the heights of life, if we don't get to express our extravagant wonders and dreams and passions, then we will cave. And mentally, we will, once it caves, we fall into that chasm and pit. And that fall can take a long time for you to realize you aren't even falling. Um, yeah. So when me and Colton broke up, or me and my ex, um, I guess not using his last name is okay. When me and my ex broke up, and my ideas about life were pretty shattered, and and my stepdad called me a narcissist, and I was so scared that I was one. And to this day, anytime I consider loving myself or talking confidently or saying things without, the punchline or, that levity or that constructive, I felt as if anytime I expressed myself, it was just out of a dark place and not out of the light. And it's really, it's been the most impossible thing to overcome because I can't say anything that I mean. I have to say things so softly and so kindly, which is cool because I'm but yeah. Right after me and my ex broke up, I that next day I stopped smoking weed and cigarettes and drinking, and I applied for American Cruise Lines to get on a boat. And I did not get accepted. Oh my God, shocker, right? No, of course not. So I didn't get accepted, and I got convicted, or rather conviction. I applied like 50 times to every position available to an entry level man like myself, and it turned out that conviction doesn't always cause what you want to happen in life. Sometimes it takes a little bit of opportunity and just a sprinkle of luck. And so after being rejected from tons of applications, one man finally heard me. I also begged inside of, what are your list and hobbies? And I said, I have no qualifications, but please hire me. Which is, in short form, what Albert Einstein said. I have no special talents. I am just passionately curious. Which is how I interpreted it, I guess. Which, of course, yikes, nevertheless. And so eventually I was heard and seen, and this is also after talking to a college academic advisor and trying to get into college, which again has always been my goal, just to go to a higher learning so I can understand how to write my poetry better and understand all the writers before me and the path that they literally created for me to get what I want, like to be an author, to be at least some literary presence with an impact or whatever impasse, nevertheless. And so February of 2019, I would go on a boat and I would set sail. Maiden voyage out of New Orleans for what would become one of the best opportunities and journeys I've ever had in my life, and where I met some of the coolest friends and the kindest people, one of which is the reason that I'm able to communicate this now. He gave me a certain book by Mark Manson. Perhaps you've heard of it. The subtle art of not giving a fuck. Which wrecks my mind a little bit, and I kind of feel bad cussing because right now I'm doing this whole fasting thing and abstinence thing, or not abstinence and certainty like sex, but to abstain from certain things that I want to overcome to be my best possible self. And so yeah, I got into the cruising industry and I became a journalist of sense, asking everybody a whole bunch of questions. Many of those questions are pertained inside of this book right here. This is my first journal. Um, and then I have like 20 other ones inside of my backpack, inside of my closet, that have a lot of the recounts of things that I've asked people, like, what was your favorite animal, to create these archetypal or these characters inside of books that I could use later in life. And I always want to, and for the rest of my life, I'll be creating stories because I've heard in quotes that the best fiction comes from characters. And since I have no teacher to teach me writing, I'm just going off a thought. And nevertheless, yeah, so that happened. That was real. And that entire experience gifted me with money, friends, a love of life, understanding, capability to progress further. And so, yeah. And when I got off of the boat, and I guess while I was on the boat, I should also point out that my family went homeless and kind of spread out. Uh, my brother eventually got out of jail for stabbing my sister, actually right before I went on the boat in February 9th, and then his birthday was February 10th, and we celebrated that, and I went on the boat February 16th. And yeah, and that was a thing. A wonderful adventure, honestly. Seeing him afterwards and understanding where he was coming from and how he thought. And at first, we're vindictive and we get really angry when people do really awful things to other people. We get very, very mad and very, very confused. And then we almost understand them just before, they tell us to. And so I listened to him and I got his side, and the understanding plus the pure love I had for him gave me like a better picture of acceptance of stuff that's not really, stuff that's not really within his control almost, and things that happen outside of him, external focuses, and also the internal intent, locus of control. Nevertheless, they went homeless, and my brother was sleeping on my aunt's couch when I got off the boat, or my uncle, actually. It's their house. My aunt and uncle, he was sleeping on their couch when I got off the boat, and my brother is a violent drunk, a very, very cantankerous person, and he's not necessarily, if there was an archetype for him, it would be that of somebody whose pure, reckless, harem-scarum affinity just reaped everything all around at all times. And he had absolutely, and I only say this because I understand what the difference between a neurological and a psychological, the difference between having brain surgery and an aneurysm, blood clot in your head, and having thoughts and insidiousness that I was such a child of. Literally my psychosis, my internal grievance and mourning, and my craziness, my hardest thoughts, like, were the fruits of it. And so I get the very different natures between what happened inside my brother and what happened inside me. And that's the only ways that I remedy it. Nevertheless, my family was homeless. My mom was in Michigan, and my stepdad was in Michigan, and my sister was kind of, actually, she had her own place because she moved out after my brother stabbed her. And I think it was so she can start on her path to getting where she wants to be, who she wants to be, how she wants to be. And I've loved the progress, and I know we both and all of us literally have so much work to do to get to a point of just above that line because we grew up in the depths of poverty. Like our trailer park was just it was a very very and in a lot of ways happy place considering how we were living, but there was such a dark undertone and there was so much sadness and grievance that we won't ever accomplish the things that we've been dreaming about and imagining for quite possibly all of our lives. Like we would never become in contact, or we'd never get that line of deviation, that disconnect of how shit was and how great it can be. Like we'd never get out of those depths of despair. That's a quote, my friend. Top of the road depths of despair. Or Goethe, honestly, the writer. Uh, and Anne Frank, I think she also said on top of the world or in depths of despair. Uh, but a friend taught me it, so nevertheless. Um, so when I got off that boat, I felt almost inclined to give everybody a world. You know what I mean? I was trying to figure out how to get a house with the boat money uh, or something to mitigate it. And in the midst of it all, one day me and my aunt, uncle, brother, and myself got into a built up anger conflict. And I got loud and ignorant and I stormed out. And me and my brother had to stay at a hotel for a couple weeks, which blew through $1,400. And it was almost, I turned 20 there. Hello, we're getting closer to the present. Because I'm 20 now. Okay. God. Nevertheless, me and my brother had, we were pretty lost. And I was having a hard time exactly sticking to the sobriety that I had on that boat, even though on that boat I lapsed damn near too many times, and I lied so much on that boat. I lied about where I came from, I lied about the people who made me, I lied about what I was doing. Like, I lied about everything. I had this most beautiful, fabulous addiction of lying. Lying because I was ashamed of who I was ashamed of how I thought, I was ashamed of who I came from. Like, I didn't want to tell people that what led me here was a series of unfortunate events, just like Lemony Snicket. Was a series of unfortunate events completely outside of my control. Not like everybody else. There was no aspiration. There was no wanting for more. There was no higher learning, etc. Like I just wanted to escape my problems, and I then in remedy, or rather, in lieu of other possible problems arising, I wanted to see the world. And instead I saw the Mississippi River, which isn't so bad, actually. You know, I got a lot of feel for Middle America. I got a lot of feel for New Orleans, all the way up to Cincinnati, across the Ohio. We went to Pittsburgh, which was pretty cool. And you know, I was a little Midwestern boy who just got into this South complex mindset in this South world, and it was like I had a lot of learning left to do to understand, but where I came from, where I went, where I was going, you know. And after that argument and us getting into the hotel and me blowing through $1,400, I realized that I would not have enough money to make anybody's life better. Because what I didn't learn growing up in poverty and still being in poverty, literally I have no money. Like all that money was gone by November. Okay. And what I learned after is that you know, money, you know, this isn't even forever. This perspective out of my eyes, it might last in works like books or you know, like it'll go places, but you know, this we're passing through everything, and money passes through us like water in a river. You don't get the same money twice. It's always different money. And you know, you have to become like married to that in order to understand that, you know, $5,000 isn't going to change your life. $10,000 isn't going to change your life. It's what you do with the money that changes your life. And so I had about $5,000 left that I was going to use to heal my depression, or I don't even know if it was necessarily depression, because I've learned that depression is when you have a horrible life, or rather, excuse me, apple and orange. A depression is when you have a magnificent life, or a regular mundane, or like just a normal life, and you are responding to it, or you know you aren't, you know, a good life. You have a good life, and you feel like it's the worst life, and everybody around you is confused why you think it's so bad when it's not that bad, but it is that bad. Or in your head, out of your eyes, what you're seeing is, it just feels internally so horrid, so morbid, so destructive, and so unclear, and so impossible, and you don't know what to do to remedy it. So you look for answers. You go to drugs and addictions. You go to psychiatrists, and you get you talk to farm, and you know, and the difference between depression and sadness, or depression and responding accurately, you know, is that when you're responding accurately to what's going on with you, what's in your mind, how you feel, how you love, how you think, and you're in a shit situation, or a situation as I'm calling it in one of the books I'm writing. When you're in a situation, and you're sad about it, or you're responding to it, that's normal. You know, that's so human. That's like literally, and it took Mark Manson, it took Jordan Peterson, it took Martin Luther King Gandhi, and my current teacher, the Dalai Lama. When you're going through turmoil and you are sad, that is direct result. That is causality. That is how it happens. That is how you grow to understand the situation. You have to feel it. Then you have to think it. And then as you marry that and understand it, you give it energy and force and so much. And yeah. And so I had $5,000 left, and a friend of mine reached out, and she let me live in her life. And her life was pretty pretty hard up. You know, you can perceive people's struggles, and then you can understand them. And I understood her struggles after so long, just, you know, hearing her from afar. And I got, you know, causes, effects, uh, impossibilities, things we have no control, no control over. Um, and I understood what she did, and we did have control over. And so when I got to her house, I think the first time I saw her was right after my birthday, or right before my birthday. I was still living at my aunt's house, and that day we got drunk, and that was only bad for me because I've always been trying to give up this addiction, struggling with addiction. Like 9 years old, and I'm 19, 10 years of smoking weed. 12 years old, and I'm 19, 7 years of drinking. Oh my gosh, like, calm down, like, slow down, like, Jesus. And so, she got arrested that night, and well, I don't even know what the police report says, but she had drugs on her. And I felt so responsible for her. I felt that it was literally my fault, because I called her. I was looking for an escape, or at least a small break from, you know, responsibility. All I had to do was get me and my brother a home, move out, and I would have had enough money to, you know, start a savings. I could have got a job immediately, and we would have lived out of a trailer or something affordable, which, you know, I don't mind where I come from anymore. Like, I used to be so nervous about even telling somebody I lived in a trailer. I didn't even want them to know how, like mundane or regular I was. I wanted to have this extravagant story. I wanted to be the child of a Harvard professor, and I wanted to be like a legacy straight to a Harvard, straight to freaking Dartmouth or Notre Dame or freaking Oxford. I wanted to be like just and that's not how you create a story. You have to live something first and do something. And so, if I had actually taken the time to, like, get out of my head, I could have probably healed so quickly. But instead, I brought her into my chaos, and I got her arrested. And she came back, and of course, she didn't blame me because she's a sweet woman, a very kind soul, and she's actually like 14, 16 years older than me. So she's 36, and I'm 20 now. Or actually, I was 19 right then, and I think when we started being friends, I was 18. But she has a gay brother, so she gave me a lot of the acceptance that I wasn't allowing myself to accept. And afterwards, what was like one of the darkest periods of my life, this descent into madness. Uh, and it started after she got out of jail. She let me come over her house to stay, and she let my brother come, which most people kind of avoid my brother, honestly. I don't think they understand him, and I literally, up until recently, I couldn't explain shit. like, the fact that I'm going almost an hour is crazy. Never been able to talk this well. Like, at least not without a big pit right here inside my chest. Just right inside a big, strong pool of fear. And I am liberated now by this fear. This fear excites me because, to quote Marianne Williamson, queen, mother, and the woman who was my first poem I read. Now that Hebrew quote in Hebrew chapter 12:29, "For our God is a consuming fire," is the scripture that started the poetic journey. But I tried to write short stories, and I was plagiarizing people for a while before I could actually make my own stories, just so that I can gather online following on Wattpad. Nevertheless, Marianne Williams, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Okay, like, liberates me. Nevertheless, the descent into madness came when I first got there. I bought us like 24 beers because I was angry, really, at my life, and I blamed my aunt and uncle. I blamed my grandma. I blamed my mom. I blamed my stepdad and my real dad. I blamed my sister. I blamed my brother. So I bought us 24 beers, and that night I probably drank 3 or 4. And then the next night I probably drank 5. After that day I drank 6. And the next day I drank 6. The next day I drank 7. And the next day I drank 8. And then I graduated to liquor. And the next day we were drinking gallons of liquor, me, my brother, and her. Whatever liquor they wanted. Honestly, I had $5,000 to blow. And so after the liquor, I graduated back to marijuana, which is my parent drug, the gateway. And we got really, really, really... we were getting toasted, a little bit too zooted. There's no pride in this. It's just that, looking back, I'm so just baffled that me and him are the same person. Same hair. Like, this is 20. This is really 20. And I swear to God, like, it was just so crazy, honestly. We got drunk every single day, and once we graduated to weed, we got high and drunk, and then eventually we graduated to ecstasy, and then we got high, drunk, and a little bit too passionate. Like, it was crazy, and I'm not proud of this. It's just that I'm completely baffled how like, just the measure, pure progression, that I couldn't even see myself. And now that I'm in succession, like those trees turn to forest, those pure trees actually sprouted fruit, like turned me into the person I am right now in this second. In this second, I'm in love with me. I'm happy about me. I'm excited about the future, regardless which path I take. And so, yeah. So let's keep it moving. Uh, Ecstasy is really the line that broke the straw that broke the camel's back, because I denied taking it the first time, and my friend, and it's not, I'm not at all blaming her or saying it like that. I did make my own decision ultimately at the end. I could have spit it out. I could have been slick. I'm clever. I could have done a lot of things to mitigate me actually doing it, but instead I took it, and I took it again, and then my brother took it, and he had an aneurysm, and I watched him, and it was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Why the fuck am I enabling this in myself and in other people? Why am I just supplying alcohol? Like, why am I just supplying addiction? Why am I just remedying things that isn't really remedying them? It's creating even more chaos and turmoil. Because I saw how we acted when we were drunk. It wasn't like we had this nightline or this pulsating energy that made us freaking just radiate and profusely, profoundly, just bright and purposeful. Nah, homies, nah. Instead, it created monsters, little monsters. And I don't mean that in the sense that we were, just rawr, rawr, rawr. No. We created these monsters of ourselves that we couldn't even understand what these monsters were and why they were so angry and so hurt and so sad, or where it came from. And then we just kept doing that over and over again for 30, maybe 40 days straight, drinking ourselves to sleep, smoking ourselves to sleep, smoking cigarettes again, getting really, 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 really wrapped up into the harrows of our own causes, heroes of our own creation. Nevertheless, when I had less than $1,000 left, less than $500 left, when I had $240 to my name, I realized I didn't want to do this anymore. I realized I wanted to get out of my head, out of my addiction, out of my problems, out of my life, and I wanted to do something else, something better. I wanted to be different, because I grew up in a place where addiction was normalized. I had no idea that I began to normalize it in myself. Yikes! Nevertheless, my friend told me that I could live with her way back when I had tons of money. And since I had nothing, I thought that extension was gone. And so I reached out to her in November after somebody had asked me for money far too many times. And I realized I didn't even have the money to give them, let alone the money to stay afloat or get myself out of the hole I dug me and my brother into, which at first I believed to be my grave. Honestly, I felt like I was dying. Like, that's how bad the anxiety became. And so I reached out to that friend, and she told me that she didn't care if I had nothing on my back, she'd let me in. And at first I was just sleeping on her couch, but nevertheless, I moved to Florida. I moved from Florida into Michigan, where I come from, which helped me a lot of understanding that how I was feeling and what I was thinking, and probably the path I would have been down had I stayed, which I never even considered. My mom had been talking about going to Florida since I was in 8th grade. Since I started poetry, so poetry, I felt like Florida was a part of my poetic journey, and poetry is literally the surmise, or rather the destination of all my desires. And so, when I got back, when
when I got back to Florida or Michigan, after this whole not wanting to do drugs, not wanting to be around this, not wanting to do this again, that day I started smoking weed. And I like honestly I'm a lightweight. Like I mean I gather a tolerance eventually, but like weed has always made me just over fucking whelmed. And at first I thought that overwhelming was cool, and then as my emotions began to grow and my anxieties like literally multiplied into manifolds of unbelievable propensities, I was like, Jesus Christ, what the flip? Like, heck no, yo. Why am I so mad? Or why am I so into it? Or so badly into it? And mad isn't crazy. Why am I so, like, involved? And, like, so from November all the way up until about a month ago, I had been smoking weed religiously. Hella religiously. Like, oh my gosh, religiously. And I didn't even. It's like I forgot what got me out of Florida until I realized I haven't worked since August  31st, and I've been talking about my dreams since I was 4 years old, and I'd done absolutely nothing towards them. Not a damn thing. Nothing of any like actual nothing that defined my inclinations, like writing and reading and talking. I love to talk to people. I love asking questions, and honestly, the definition of my character is my curiosity. Because my curiosity has no bounds, and whether I become anything or not, I will learn every day. Not from the humility of Ralph Emerson Waldo that everybody I can learn something from, but everything I can learn something from. I'm learning something staring at pieces of paper, guys. It's like, whoa. Like, it's just a fantastic world that we live in, that the fruits of our life is that we are always interpreting and responding to stimuli in every level of the words. And it's like, that's the most beautiful thing in the universe. And I can't even keep still most of the time. And so, nevertheless, I, I had a really horrible experience, and I realized that I wasn't even moving mentally at all. Like, I was just responding. Even, like, the boat that got me all that money was a response. Going to Florida was a response. Stop smoking that first time was a response. My, you know, I've always just been a response, and that's probably like because when I smoked weed the first time, it was because my sister's friend died, and she had all of us little kids around, and it's not like that. The other kids smoked weed already. I was the only one that I feel like she was introducing it to. Nevertheless, um, we she smoked weed with all the neighborhood kids, and we jumped on a trampoline, and all of us were happy. It was like, like I mean, hell, we were 9 years old and 10-year-olds. Like, we didn't know better. And she was still a teenager, like a kid. She didn't think she was doing anything, and but it was still a response. Drinking with my dad, I couldn't buy alcohol. That was a response. Mourning my dad, I couldn't, kill him. That was a response. um, watching when my brother and sister would fist fight, or when my brother would punch holes in the wall at our house, or when people would come over, our dogs would shit all over, and we'd tear up the carpet, and we'd have no carpet in our home, but we'd have like damn near just drywall floors. And all the feelings I felt towards those were just responses. There was no stimuli there. There was nothing that I caused. And so this time I was done responding, and I was about ready to start creating. I'd say individuation, Carl Jung, I created myself. Nietzsche, I went into the pits of my labyrinth and tried to find the center, at least, in biblical sense. I was reborn in Buddhist sense, I guess I could say. I started my path. Um, Nevertheless, I decided uh, I didn't want to live the way I was living. but it was the smallest decision at first. Literally, the most smallest of the cog was like this, and then I turned the cog upside down, and I was like, time to take charge. Time to be who I am. Time to live my most fabulous and most creative artistic self. And it was like the most brilliant like discovery in anything that I've ever done, because I've always been the boy who stood with the longing look and the observation, who watched people and observed their paradigms, and who mimicked with all color everything that other people were doing. And then out of nowhere, I became a self. I was me. Like, I am a person. I am capable of so much that I didn't even know was inside of me. So I stopped smoking weed. I stopped smoking cigarettes. I stopped drinking. I stopped listening to things that I didn't want to listen to. And I did all the things that I wanted to. And then I remembered in Buddhism these Four Noble Truths, that all of life is suffering. The cause of suffering is desire. And when you stop desire, you can stop suffering. And in order to stop desire, you have to go on the Eightfold Path. And so I'm really into that, and I'm going on it right now. But after abstaining a few times, writing down a lot more clear thoughts after, because I've never once wanted to stop weed for myself. I wanted to stop weed in lieu of something. And weed is my primary addiction, but I have an addictive personality. Hell, I'm getting addicted to talking right now. That's why this is almost an hour and 10 minutes. Like, oh my gosh, like I have the worst, like literal, like tendencies or the proclivity or love of like getting wrapped up into something. And that's why I'm so defined by my curiosity. Because I will, from the end of all, if I can get into a liberal arts school, or if I can get into a place where I can get a teaching degree and excel, or go higher and higher and higher, all the way up to the highest glass ceiling, and I can shatter it, that'd be pretty damn cool. But so I stopped smoking weed, I stopped drinking, I stopped smoking, I started fasting, I started eating healthier to intake what's better for me. And I didn't do it to make my mom proud. I didn't do it to overcompensate the fact that I was going crazy. I did it for clarity, because the couple weeks ago, or like before stopping, I started having these panic attacks, and I'd record these little like messages to myself. I called it a podcast, or which was really cool, honestly, re-listening to it. I'm not gonna lie, I was having so much fun, and it was like a remedy, I guess, of all of this. And so I was like, I was rewatching it, and I was listening to the podcast. Really, at first it was called Contestaholic, but the more I understood myself, it was called State of Confusion, because 20 years, dude, of confusion. 20 years of confusion about who I am, what I want, about the world I live in, about my parents, about my siblings, about my friends, about my teachers. 20 years of confusion, and I finally feel for the first time in 20 years this almost sense of clarity and purpose in my life that I tried so hard to imitate, or through intimation, uh, uh, or excuse me, imitate. That was fine. On the boat, and prior to the boat, I worked at Barnes and Nobles, and then I worked at a gas station, and then the first job I ever had was a diner, where I was a dishwasher. Pretty lame. And I always pretended to have passion, but I didn't feel shit. The only thing I felt was gas. Like, honestly, and that's horrible. And honestly, I'm doing really bad on abstaining from cussing in this story. It's not, I don't want, yeah, but failures and success are both in cycle. Karma is not the cause of bad from good, or the good from bad. It is the whole process. Okay. Flip. So I stopped smoking because a couple weeks prior to that, I started having, like, I've always had panic attacks one-on-one that I didn't talk to people about. I talked to my mom, obviously, but my mom, she has panic attacks too. And she's also one of those people that, to an extent, can't help you because she knows her mortal bounds. Or, in other words, she knows what she can and can't do. And helping me is not one of them. Or it was. That's either how I perceived it, or that's how it really was. Nevertheless. also, uh, Jeepers Creepers. Oh my goodness. Ah! So I flip. She couldn't help me. And nonetheless, I started having the worst panic attacks of my entire life. Like, I had the only way to stop them
There,
was the recording and talking into the recorder. Honestly, and I tried a series of breathing exercises, literally every single one that Google can have. And if you ever know how many or how much Google searches, how many searches you'll get or results, I should say it. I tried literally all Google of them, all infinity, and I swear to God, nothing was helping me. I was so scared, and weed never helped. I don't know what the fuck I was trying to say to people. Like, I evangelized the powers of marijuana, but it never actually helped me. It was just like a substitute save for the real help. And then it was like cigarettes didn't help because cigarettes literally made me feel like I was like hyperventilating every single time that I would hit it. I'd be like, what the fuck? Why can't I breathe? Why can't I breathe? And I'd still be hitting it because I'm still thinking. And it's like, I don't need this to think. I literally am always in a constant state of thought, like perpetually. I don't need to really imitate any ideas, or rather create this false fiction in my head that cigarettes and weed and also drinking when I drank was actually doing something for me, because I didn't feel like it was. So in the lieu of the worst panic attack I had, I think I made a podcast episode about addiction and poverty, which is not really an episode because you can't find it anywhere, and I don't think I'll ever publish it, honestly. But it put into perspective, like, I guess I didn't realize I've been smoking since I was 9 years old. For damn near 11 years, even though I started this video talking about it, you don't really realize, like, because it's like, that's not the story, the story is who you are. The story is I'm in school, the story is that I'm writing, the story is that I'm coloring, the story is that you don't understand the underlying subplots that make up the whole story too, and how literally one deviation from the norm, a single cog in the machine, changes the entire depth of it, changes the entire perception of it, changes not just the perception, creates a better understanding of it. And rather, consciously and unconsciously, I realized all of my life I've just been trying to either escape addiction or poverty, and most of the time I don't know which one I'm doing. And this time I'm sick of escaping something. I'm pursuing my fucking life. I'm going for it. Fuck this. Jesus, I've been in the bottle this whole time and I'm about to shatter it. I'm going out of this and I'm doing so much well. And it's not just passion. It's that I after understanding that, it was so easy to give it up without even a thought. And I don't want to smoke ever again. I don't want to drink ever again. And if I can literally create that, reality, I feel like I'll just be happy. And so I've joined the Navy, or I'm trying to enlist in the Navy, even though I'm having second thoughts, honestly, because I really know that I just want to go to school, get a teaching degree, and move up from there to the highest a man can go. The very top that a human can go. And that includes two different directions. The Space Force, or space, which is the initial place I was trying to find a way to get into, or the other highest a man can go, which I'll just let you guys imagine that, because some things, if I reveal them too much, I lose confidence, and this confidence I need to hold on to until I'm ready to reveal the full fruition of all of my life plans. And I've been planning. I have a 12-year plan, and I've broken it into 3 trimesters, and I broke those 3 trimesters into down year by year. And I'm also okay with my plans failing now. It's just I have a whole new clarity. I understand what it takes to be a person, and I have so much growth left. And so this is almost riveting. I've only scratched the surface of realizing myself. And yeah, nevertheless, I need a laptop so that I can get back into writing, which save for something else. Not to say that not having a laptop has even stopped me in the slightest, because I can take it back to my humble beginnings. Um, Poetry in written format, you know, and I have a shit ton of ideas and planning into it. Aka Homo, How to Become Who You Are, which is Friedrich Nietzsche. And I'm not talking the nihilistic perspective, but the understanding of self. Uh, I have literally my plans for college and identifying and choosing a career. I've set smart goals, specific, measured, accurate, realistic, and timely. And the big part of it is that I was such an easily influenced person that I stopped letting things get to me. And not without a lot of suffering. Not without literally losing my damn mind for the past 5 years almost. Not without a lot of pain involved. But it makes me almost super duper satisfied. Like, I'm still going through pages. I'm still going through pages of the fruits of this mind. Set, at least. And so I'm excited for the world of poetry that I'll embark on, excited for the world of teaching that I'll embark on, and excited for everything beyond that, the world that I get to see via my bucket list. If I get once I get enough money and enough passion, or rather not passion, because that's literally woo. That's the fruit of my labor too, because like I had such a disconnect of what passion was, and I guess it was like it was either I'm pretty sure it was in Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck that defined passion is not what causes you to do something, it's the effect of doing something, and like anytime I feel myself slipping into the dark mindset that I had like all my life again, and this is since coming to the realization of who I am and what I want, coming to an understanding that compassion is the only thing I care about. Compassion is the key to success. Compassion is literally gonna get me through every door, and compassion is gonna open up every freaking wall, every crevice. Compassion is the highest unshatterable ceiling. That it's like ever since then I've in realizing myself is not just compassion, excuse me. It's because of compassion. Because despite my blaming for how horrible my life was, and despite, I could have hated my ex, I could be confused and angry with my siblings for things beyond their control, like their addictions and how I interpreted their addictions as the only coping mechanisms, and I could blame so much on the world and myself, but I'd rather heal the world one word at a time, maybe two or three or four or 16 messages. I'd rather heal all of the hurt that has been caused from my actions, actions of our fathers, actions, like all of us are just, the culmination of just things outside of our control. Even our thoughts are outside of our control, really, because aren't they just responses to our environment? And then we're responding to them. Metacognition. uh, so I'm ready to embark. I'm ready to go there. I've spent this life longing, observing. With that, if you've ever read The Great Gatsby, I'm more of a Nick than a Gatsby. More of a understanding the dark horrors of man than a man who has lived and experienced the horrors of man and trying to excel. Or if you've read, the Bible, I'm a lot less of Jesus. I'm a lot more of a Moses. I'd rather split the sea. Lead the Israelites to freedom and tell them, Exodus 14:14, the Lord shall fight for you. You need only to be still. I'm more of that type of, so, or in epic heroines. It's just, I'm so happy. And I'm so ready. As soon as I can get a laptop and start writing as much, I hope or plan to be published by 21. Like 21 is the year that possibilities become reality, and my realities are filled with possibilities. And I am the fecundity or bound by the fecundity of the world will no more. Uh, yeah, so that's my story, and that's why, because I honestly am only using the military so that I can get the GI Bill, so that I can go to college for free, because I am dirt poor. I have nothing to my name. My family is poor, and I have no idea about college, how to get in, what to do when I'm in, nothing. I'm just completely ignorant of all the whole process. I can explain to you, like, why, but I feel like I have. So I was so wrapped up in this head. I was so inside of here, and now I just want to let it all out. And then I want to learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and let more out and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and let more out. I want to take it all in too, and it's not just reciprocal or in like a breath. I want to inhale knowledge, exhale understanding, inhale love, exhale positivity. Like, I just want it to be so much more than the fabric of dharmas that are beyond me. I want my own dharma to be manifested in everything. I want my own will. I want my own goals to be there. And I'm so ready, like, because I've never once thought of myself as a person. I've thought of myself as my mother's son. I've thought of myself as somebody's brother or somebody's friend. I've thought of myself in, like, anytime that I talk about, anybody be talking about their accomplishments, I'd be like, oh my God, my friend is trying to work for SpaceX. Oh my God, my other friend is taking his MCAT, and he's, like, literally about to be a freaking doctor, or he wants to be a freaking doctor, but I'm talking about it as if it's me, as if that passion I'm exuding for other people is me. And I'm so ready to talk about me and be me, like, for the rest of my life. Like, live that color every day, outside of the spectrum of belief, outside of that whole rainbow that we think we see. Beyond that, I'm ready to be just defined not by my circumstances, by my current ideals, but by who I want to be and who I am. Like, because that is the message. That is the point. That is the reason that we do everything that we do, to define ourselves. We talk about these grandiose concepts, and we're always just explaining ourselves, right? Like, to quote Jordan Peterson, right? Aren't we just explaining ourselves? Isn't the point of everything to explain who we are? And is there anything wrong with explaining yourself when everybody has this underlying will of just love for their neighbor, without even understanding that that love is for your neighbor? And with Alan Watts, it says that, he says, I want what he wants and she wants and they want and everyone wants, and I do not know what they want. Right? Isn't that compassion? Um okay, my name is Ryan Ellis. It is 10:34 a.m. I believe it is um March 28th. Yeah, had to double check because I just woke up and started this. Like, this has been what I've been doing for the past hour and a half now. And I just want to, yeah, see how much I love everybody.